This particular story is during the time of my time on the Weber State track team during my freshman year of college. I was only on the team for 1 year. I decided to not continue to pursue track after I had served a mission, and so I ended up just doing, actually transferring up to Utah State and going to school up there. But this particular story involves going on a date with a set of twins. And I feel like there's always the joke made with twins. My wife is a twin. I coach a number of sets of twins, and there's always a joke of like, do people ever confuse you for the other person? Or have you guys ever, gone to the other's class and tricked the teacher? Or have you ever switched in and out in this situation? And so this story involves precisely that. Me going on a date with these twins and them switching in and out on the date. The catch is that I was in on the joke, but one of the twins was not. And so the prank was actually on one of these twins. And so this is the story of kind of how that gets set up. It was the end of our track season, of our outdoor track season. The outdoor conference championship for the Big Sky Conference. I was at Weber State, so we were in the Big Sky Conference. The outdoor conference championship was at Idaho State that year, I believe. We had just finished the outdoor conference championship, and a lot of my teammates who lived in the housing next to campus were getting ready to go back home for the summer. I already lived at home. I lived close enough to campus that I didn't, see the need to spend money on campus housing when I could just mooch off of my parents. And so we were all hanging out after, the week after the conference championship, and we were hanging out in the front room of one of my teammates' apartments, and pretty much everything had been cleared out. So we're just sitting, it's a bunch of college students sitting on an open floor trying to figure out what to do for the night. So we actually ended up playing, this is I don't know how childish this is for a bunch of college kids to be playing this, but we started playing Truth or Dare. And there was one particular girl on our team she had a twin who played volleyball for in college. It was either at Dixie or SUU. It wasn't Dixie, or it was Dixie at the time, now it's Utah Tech. Anyway, so my dare was to prank call her sister. I use my phone and I get her number from my teammate, obviously, and for the sake of this story, you need to know that my teammate's name is Holly, and her sister's name is Heather. And so I call up Heather and I pretend like I'm asking for her sister. And so I say, "Hey, is Holly there?" Heather says, "Oh no, that's my twin. You must be trying to get a hold of her." And she was really nice on the phone, and I had no idea really where I was going with it, but I decided to just start to pretend like I had earlier that week had approached Holly and tried to ask her out and get her number and stuff. And so I start playing the card of, oh, why? She must have given me the wrong number. Why do girls always do this to me? Try to make her feel bad for me. And I really try to make myself look as kind of pathetic as possible. I just always get rejected, all this stuff. But I continue on, and I don't even remember what I talked about, but I probably did not let her get a word in for about 10 minutes. I just continued talking about stupid stuff, and she was such a sweetheart. She was so nice that she just listened to me go on and on and on. So finally, I think she finally ended up cutting me off, and she's like, "All right, well, I'm sorry that this happened. Like, I gotta go." I ended up finishing the call by saying, this was really difficult for me. I get really nervous to call up girls. And I said, "I don't think I can work up the guts to call her again." And I said, "Would you mind doing me a favor and calling Holly for me and seeing if she'll go out with me?" Obviously that's a weird request, and so she was a little thrown off by that. But again, she was so nice that she was like, "You want me to call her?" And I was like, "Yeah, if you could, that would be so nice. I'd be so appreciative." And she was like, "Okay." So super nice. We end up hanging up, and a few seconds later, Holly's phone rings. And I'm sitting right next to her, and all of our teammates were sitting there just waiting for the phone call. And Holly picks up, and it's Heather. And Heather says, "Hey, you are not gonna believe what just happened, but I just got off the phone with this kid named Andy. He wants me to ask you out for him." Holly proceeds to just act well, maybe she wasn't acting, who knows, but she continues to be completely disgusted by even the sound and thought of my name. You know, she says, "Oh, Heather, I know who you're talking about. He came and talked to me in the library the other day. He's super weird and super creepy. He won't leave me alone. I can't go out with him. Like, I can't go out with him." And Heather is like, "Well, what do you want me to do about it? Like, you got to call him and tell him no." And Holly says, "No, you don't understand. Like, I cannot call him. He won't leave me alone. You need to call him back for me." And so now Heather's in the middle of this debacle. But again, she's so nice. She calls me back and she says, "Hey, I just got off the phone with Holly and she says she's not interested and she's not going to be able to go out with you." And so I do the first thing that comes to my mind and I start to cry to try and tug at her heartstrings a little bit. And, you know, I say, "You know, girls are always doing this to me. I don't understand why, you know, a girl won't say yes to going out with me," all this kind of stuff. And finally, Heather just keeps digging herself deeper. She says, "You know what? Let me give Holly another call. Let me see what I can do." And I'm just overwhelmed with joy. I'm like, "Oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much." So we hang up again. Holly's phone rings again. Heather says, "Holly, I really think you should go on at least one date with this guy. He sounds pretty pathetic." I mean, we're all sitting there listening and laughing. And then Heather has this great idea. Since we were at the end of the semester, school was done, people were moving home. The following day, Heather and Holly already had plans for Heather to come up and help Holly move back home. So Heather says, "Holly, I have this great idea. Why don't you let me tell him you'll go on a date with him? And then tomorrow when I come to pick you up, we can do a lunch date and you and I can switch in and out on the date." And Holly just gets overwhelmed. I mean, she's just like, "Oh, Heather, that is the best idea. Let's do it." You know, knowing that this is going to be a fun prank to play on Heather and Heather's not going to have any idea. What ends up happening, Heather calls me back and she says, "Hey, I was able to talk Holly into going on a date with you. Here's her number, give her a call and set it up." You know, I say thank you, and then Heather thinks that I call Holly to set up the date, and we have this whole conversation that Heather doesn't even know about. When in reality, myself and Holly and the rest of our teammates end up staying up for another couple hours planning how to make this miserable for Heather. And so what ends up happening, the next day in the morning, I spent the morning shopping at the DI I've tried to find the ugliest sweater I could. I had kind of longer curly hair at the time, so I slicked it over as much as I could in this gross, you know, just slimy part. And I bought big glasses, the thickest glasses I could find. And I show up. Heather had shown up early, and all of my teammates had this idea that they were going to tell Heather, "Hey, we're going to film it so that we can watch it afterwards." And so Heather knows that our teammates are filming this whole date, and so it doesn't matter if she sees them filming, but she doesn't think I know. She thinks the joke is being played on me, and so I just have to pretend like I don't see the cameras and that I'm totally oblivious. I show up to pick up Holly, that's supposed to be Holly, for the date, but I ended up starting the date with Heather. When I knock on the door, Heather answers the door, and I say, "Oh, hey, Holly," and she's like, "Hey, come on in. I'm just finishing getting ready." From here, I just proceed to do as many awkward things as I can for this girl to make her feel uncomfortable. So the first thing I do is I ask her if I can use her bathroom before we leave. So I go into the bathroom. While I'm in the bathroom, I make as many crude noises as I possibly can. Like I am, and as loud as I possibly can, making sure she knows. I don't know if this was funny or not. To me, it was funny, and most of this was just to entertain myself anyway. But I flushed the toilet, and then immediately after I flushed the toilet, I walked out the door so that she knew I didn't wash my hands, even though I didn't even go to the bathroom. I have no idea if she even noticed, but it was funny to me. We're leaving the apartment. We go out to my car, and the car that I was driving at the time was this old, like 1990 something Toyota blue pickup truck. You know, the doors didn't work very well. It kind of smelled awful in there. The point was my teammates had told me to kind of stall on our way to the restaurant so that they could get there before us, get a seat, be all ready to go before we get there. So I take kind of a long way. I think I use the excuse like, "Oh, I want to drive past the D Event Center one last time," or so. Anyway, we drove by the D Event Center. I make up some stories. But the best part about our drive over there is I had found out the previous night from Holly that I actually played basketball against Heather's boyfriend in high school. At the time, she was waiting for him while he was on his mission. I took that as an opportunity to just completely blast her boyfriend because she wouldn't be able to defend him because she thinks that I think she's Holly. So I started this conversation, I say, so you went to Riverton High, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I played basketball against Riverton. They had a real douchebag for a point guard. And this person I'm referencing is her boyfriend. I make sure that there's no confusion on who I'm talking about. I give his number, his jersey number, I give his first name, and she tries to defend his honor without letting on that, how close she actually is with him. So she says, and I don't remember the guy's name, but she's like, oh, well, I knew him in high school and he was a nice guy. And I was like, no, he was not. In the handshaking line after the game, he called me the B word. He wouldn't even shake my hand. Like, he is a terrible person. I don't know why anyone would ever be his friend. and she just was acting, not acting, she was so surprised. She's like, really? He said that? Like, he did all those things? And I was like, yeah, he's an awful person. So anyway, we finally make it to the restaurant. The restaurant we go to is Javier's. When we get there, we sit down, and I had this, Javier's, I don't know if they still do this, but they would give you they used to give you like a birthday voucher, like a buy one entree, get one free. And so we sit down, and as the waitress is taking our order, I ask Heather, I say, hey, I've got this buy one, get one free entree card. Do you think that we have to get the same entree for this to work? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, well, if we do, why don't you just get what I get? And if there are any, high school, if any of my students are listening to this, just know that is not what you should do. And especially don't let your date know that you have this coupon. Just go with the flow. Don't ask her questions like that. So anyway, turns out we could get different entrees, so we got different entrees. And after we ordered, Heather went to the bathroom, and while she was in the bathroom, she and Holly switched. And so when Holly came out, Holly and I were just, we were good friends, so we were just chatting and having a good time and laughing, and Heather was hanging out with my teammates at the other booth. And we ate about half the meal together, and then Holly asked to use the bathroom again. She excused herself, and they switched again, and Heather came out. And while they switched the second time, I told the waitress that it was her birthday. She comes back down, she sits down, and a few minutes later they bring out this big thing of fried ice cream with a candle in it, I think, and they sing her happy birthday. And the whole time they're singing happy birthday, I just have this big grin on my face, smiling at her, just super excited to see her reaction. And they finish singing, and I look at her and I say, happy birthday. And she looks so confused. She's like, it's not my birthday. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, it's not my birthday. And I said, you told me it was on the phone last night when I called you to set up the date. Heather had no idea what was talked about on that phone call. So she was like, I did? And I was like, yeah. And she was just kind of like, all right. Like, she just took it assumed that Holly had lied to me and said it was her birthday. So we do that, but then I make sure my first scoop of ice cream that I took of this fried ice cream was pretty much the entire bowl. Like, I made sure to get as much as I could on this spoon of ice cream, and I think I may have eaten the entire thing. I don't think I'd let her have any. So anyway, we finish. I end up, Javier, the owner of the restaurant, his daughter was on the track team at Weber State, and so he knew a lot of the people on the track team. I think I even made the waitress go and get my salt packet autographed by Javier, and how I just loved his food and I wanted his autograph. And so she thought that was weird. Anyway, we leave, we head back to the apartment. My teammates and Holly are already back there ready to record this awkwardness. I had planned to make the doorstep scene as awkward as possible. Like, I was completely ready to go in for a kiss, and knowing that it would just look completely hilarious on camera when she just tries to pull away and won't let me kiss her. Before we get to the doorstep, I put on a bunch of chapstick. I think I may have even left a big glob of chapstick on my lips. We get to the doorstep, and I was like, all right, thanks for coming to lunch with me. I had a great time. And I go in to give her a kiss, and she would not even get close to me to even consider a kiss. I think she just reached out with one arm and kind of gave me a pat on the shoulder. Anyway, then she went inside, and Holly was actually waiting inside the apartment for her. So she says, we say goodbye. She goes inside the apartment. Holly's in there waiting. They both kind of are like, oh my gosh, that was so funny. That they're just celebrating that they were able to pull it off, and he's so weird and all that stuff. And then I take the camera from my teammate, because he's outside recording us. I take the camera from my teammate and I knock on the door. I was like, Holly, wait, I forgot something. And Holly makes Heather answer the door again. And so Heather answers the door, and now I'm holding the camera, and she looks kind of confused because I'm holding the camera. And then I yell at her, I'm just like, you just got punked. Me and my teammates all run in the apartment. Holly's like screaming and jumping around, and it took a few seconds for for Heather to realize that she was the one that was getting pranked. And when she did, I think she and Holly just had like a punching match because Heather was so upset. But it was one of the funnest pranks we'd ever pulled off. I feel like all I ever talk about is pranking girls with, the Logan Challenge and now this date. But it was great, and I don't know where the footage ended up. I think one of my teammates ended up with it. I have no idea where it is, but that would be kind of fun to uncover. So anyway, that's it for this week. Tune in next week to find out what other stupid stuff we did in college and high school, and have a great week.